we're gonna be doing the caster talk in just a couple seconds. So we'll just go ahead and get started. So my name is Ardent. I am I'm the healer in my static, but I play a surprising amount of Black Mage. I've been playing a lot of Black Mage recently. Um, and just casters in general. I really like cast bars. I like being able to stand still, pick my spot, and be able to do the things. But yeah, I am. I guess my second favorite color today is gonna have to be purple. I've been using purple a lot recently. Um, yeah, let's go
It's a
ahead.
purple day.
Yep. I guess we'll go with Window Boy second. But we're doing introductions out. I mean, getting the introductions out of the way. All
I'm
right, Window
sorry,
Boy.
I got so confused when I heard Window Boy.
Yep.
All right. My name is Razh. In Ardent's static, I am the Gunbreaker, but I will be talking about Summoner because in the last tier, Eden Verse, I went Summoner for 2 of the fights, Iconoclasm and Refulgence, and
hmm
I basically cheesed the class, and that supposedly makes me good at Summoner.
Yeah. Good enough to talk about it. Second favorite color?
Do you have the picture, or?
We can post the picture later.
We'll post it on Twitter.
We'll post it. We'll
Get
post it
that
on my
sweet,
YouTube.
sweet engagement.
All right.
Yeah. Second
what were
favorite
you
color.
asking?
Second favorite color though.
My second favorite color?
Yes.
Well, now it's gonna sound like I'm a copycat, but my second favorite color is purple.
Cool. All right. Let's go next with let's go Daddy next.
Question: will he respond to that?
Oh, you mean me?
There we go.
Uh, I am Hojo. Within the static, I am the group's Black Mage.
Mm-hmm.
I picked up Black Mage at the beginning of Verse and have been playing it ever since. And as I stated earlier, Black Mage is the greatest class of all time. Yeah. Second favorite color is any dark shade of blue.
Cool. And last but
Good.
not least, my raid husband.
So I'm Brad. You've heard me on literally every single one of these episodes, and since Ardent is the healer in the static, I guess I'm the bitch. And my second favorite color, let's say today, is I don't know, teal.
Cool. Brad, your role is not the
Yes.
healer. Your role is the overhealer. You make sure that we both overheal.
And this guy over here.
Anyways, let's go ahead and get
I
started.
hope you bought him out of mana, you fucking greedy bastard.
All right, but yeah, let's go ahead and get started. Before we talk about any individual changes to casters and stuff, why don't we go ahead and just talk about the general changes to all casters?
Which I believe is an exceedingly
yeah.
short list.
Have they said what the secondary the role actions are or whatnot?
They haven't gone into the role actions. I believe the most we've got is that sort of catch-all placard that they had at the live letter, which, if I'm remembering correctly, was just that Addle is being being changed alongside Feint.
Oh yeah.
So that Addle will now affect physical damage as well. So basically, just saying, casters will now have even more useful raid utility.
Yeah,
which isn't really saying much. They were the only ones who did have raid utility.
Yeah,
And
and
like
for
Addle's
category.
still mainly going to be used on the magical attacks, but at the same time, like, hey, if we don't have Feint, we can throw it on a melee one now for even just little mitigation.
For people that don't know, so Addle only up through Shadowbringers only affected magical damage, and it was used mostly for like raid wides to help kind of take the edge off of the damage. But like 90% of all raid wides in every single tier was magic damage based. So it made melee DPS feel really bad because they had the physical equivalent to that. And basically, what they're doing now is just kind of bring everything slightly more to parity, so that melee DPS can actually reduce damage from like incoming magic raid wides, similarly to how now um, mages can now take the edge off of physical raid wides or whatever it ends up being. So
Pretty
yeah,
unlikely, but
yeah,
I would be surprised. The 2 tiers that we've been through, like we said, Addle has never not been a live button. There has always been a very good target for it, pretty much on cooldown.
yeah,
There's a pretty good reason for that.
yep, pretty much.
You can blame Dark Knight and Gunbreaker for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Are there any other things? Oh,
That's quite
is-
literally the only change listed in the live letter, but there
and
might be other things.
I mean the only other thing is just like I know they're messing with potencies and stats and stuff for mages and
Oh, for the gear,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, for gear and
magical
DPS.
potencies will be higher.
Yeah, just because they're trying to fix how the interactions are now with melee versus magic potencies.
Yeah, because
Right.
1.0.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I think aside from that, we can just go ahead and jump right into each individual job. So right now on screen, I have all of the changes to all these jobs. We basically took the pictures out of Gamer Escape. So if you ever want to like kind of follow along, or if you need a tooltip to be able to like look at and interact with yourself, I would highly recommend going over to Gamerscape's website to take a look at these on your own time after stream, or during stream if you feel like it. And yeah, let's go ahead and just get started. We decided on Summoner first as the first spellcaster to talk about. So why don't we just go ahead and talk about like first? Let's just say, right, and we've been doing this for every single job so far. Let's just pretend that like we have someone that doesn't know Summoner, that is looking at it but doesn't know what quite to expect. How would you describe what Summoner is going into Endwalker?
So, basically, Summoner has definitely changed because everyone always knew Summoner for having the 2-minute rotation, and you had to follow the
Mhm.
rotation to a T.
Yeah.
Like, no matter what, you were always doing the same thing. You'll be Dreadworm, Bahamut, have your filler phases and whatnot with trying to get Rune 4s and stuff, and then you have Phoenix, and then you'll repeat the whole thing over and over again. But now they've changed it. The summoners are actually summoners now, and you now have phases where you're basically just going into Bahamut first.
Mhm.
You no longer have Dreadworm, and then you go into the 3 summoning phases. You can, in any order you want, you can go Ifrit, Garuda, or Titan, and then you finish it off with Firebird Phoenix, and then you repeat the whole process over again. So there's a lot more fluid with the class going into Endwalker.
Mm-hmm. So would you say like what would be the main like? So would you say like the main difference is just like a strict rotation versus more kind of free form, like kind of tailor-made rotation that you can put towards like any given fight?
Yeah, there definitely seems like Summoner is going to be a lot more. You could definitely change up stuff,
Mhm.
and like you can definitely change it to fit the fights better. Because the only thing that you did like in the previous expansions with Summoner, well, I can only really speak for Shadowbringers, is you would change up like if you were front loading your opener to change when exactly you had Bahamut and Firebird to
Mhm.
match up with downtime. But
Yeah.
now it's like that was a very minor thing. But now in Endwalker, like you're going to be changing up everything because in Ifrit has long cast, and Titan has like the most damage and movement, and then Garuda has some movement as well.
Movement, some floor effects. So,
Yeah.
would you say then that like current summoner, as far as changing up your rotation, as far as optimization goes, it really just came down to speeding up getting to your end goal or slowing down just to try and match up with the fight pacing?
Most of the time it will be like speeding up to make sure that you didn't get caught with downtime at certain things, because the 2 minute rotation, you're actually purposely uh, aligning like your Bahamut up with raid buffs and also Firebird. But when you front load it at the beginning, you're basically just casting everything right as it is going off cooldown. But then that would misalign your opener. You won't have the 2 minute rotation. But
Okay.
depending on the downtime, it would change things up.
Whereas New Summoner, again, my understanding of New Summoner is a little shaky at the moment, but it seems like it's an almost modular rotation. Like when you're in Titan phase or Ifrit phase, you're going to be going through a set series of actions in an order. You don't just get to mix and match within those phases, do you? It's more a question of saying, all right, for this fight, I want to be Ifrit here, Garuda here, Titan here.
Basically, there's going to be a lot that you can play around with, because looking at the cast times, and also they I believe Ifrit only has like 2 charges, and then like Titan and Garuda will have 4 charges
On their
so
attacks, right?
yeah, on the text.
Yeah.
So there's certain attacks. Let me see if I can find
So
them.
would you say like? Go ahead.
Yeah. So the skill name Gemshine and Precious Brilliance, they turn into like the corresponding things of Right and Catastrophe. So it'd be like Topaz, Emerald, or Ruby, Right, or Catastrophe,
Mhm.
and that will change up how they play. So a lot of times it could be like, oh, here's high damage, or for Ifrit you have a gap closer. Garuda, you have the floor AoE. Titan has like really quick movement. So it definitely changes it up, like how you can your mobility during that.
But it's not possible to say, all right, I'm going to use half my Ifrit charges here, then go into Titan, and then go back to Ifrit. I don't think that's something you can do, or I could have been
No.
misreading.
Yeah, I think you have to use the charges, but I'm not exactly sure, because I haven't, like, there's been no. I
we
haven't
don't have
personally done a
hands-on
play
with it.
test, so it's like it's hard to really tell a lot about it. And plus, as the joke is, I'm the Windows summoner, so I can't really say much about it. The only thing I do know is like there's no longer like there's not like the traditional filler phase of the Ruin 4s anymore, because you're not even getting those anymore. Like Bahamut just has it's kind of similar to Firebird now. You just have Astral Flare and Astral wait. Oh no, you have Astral Impulse and oh yeah, Astral Flare. Okay.
Yeah.
I just had to look at the names of them. You know, we had to.
You do still
somewhat
have
look.
Ruin 4, but it's now, I think, purely it's an AoE tool.
Yeah, like Ruin 4 is still there, but it does not function how it used to be with the stacks, and you only saved that for Bahamut. Like you used it for movement, but you always made sure you had 4 stacks going into Bahamut for the max damage.
Yeah.
Right.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say the stuff with Ruin 4 and the tree that kind of leads to it is a bit strange to me. Just looking at the tooltips, it's definitely something that I'll need to have hands-on with.
Yeah.
Because as it stands, they still have energy drain. It still does more damage than Scholars for some bewildering reason.
Yeah, it's weird that they have energy drain and fester still when they got rid of the dots, so they're just like free damage.
Yeah.
And
we forgot to mention that too.
It's so weird to see them, and a little nitpick of mine is, why do they still have energy siphon and what's that other skill?
Pain Flare.
Pain Flare. Yeah, it's like, why do you have those when you could just have fall off damage?
Feels kind of archaic.
And fester. Like, if you want to reduce the bloat on summoner.
Yeah.
You want to know my personal conspiracy theory? I think they were afraid of a negative reaction if you showed up to Summoner day 1 on Endwalker and realized you only had like 9 buttons. It's the only reason I can think of for physics to still be here.
I bet it's going to confuse a couple summoners when they see Try Disaster as their new AoE and not
It's-
Outburst.
The upgrade of Outburst.
Yeah.
When
But
Try
yeah,
Disaster used to be our 2 dots that
yeah.
we instantly cast.
Like, yeah, just Summoner in general just seems to be the like most overhauled. I mean, I think that and Monk,
Oh yeah,
you know, like
I think
very
everyone
much.
can agree on that.
like-
That Summoner and
way
Monk
more
are the
overhauled
most.
than Monk.
Yeah.
Way more.
Yeah, and you know, like despite all the
machinist treatment.
despite all the like kind of text vomit just like all over, like, because this is by far the biggest fucking visual guide that I've seen so far.
Pulled
It's
it up
actually,
and thought I'd accidentally clicked on Blue Mage.
yeah, it's actually
Oh.
yeah, but it's actually like, you know, like as has been said, it's been relatively simple in terms of like the actual execution of it. Like you have Ifrit, Titan, Garuda phases and stuff, right? But like, you know, you tailor make your rotation, like we were saying earlier, regarding,
Yeah.
you know, what fits best in each scenario. I think honestly the biggest thing for me is just like the dots going away, because I just could not fucking wrap my mind around like how to get that shit. Like,
Yeah, and I can
down.
actually explain the dots. They actually helped you with your rotation because since it was a 2-minute rotation, you basically did your dots 4 times during that every 30 seconds.
Mhm.
But you had 3 Try Disasters, and then there's 1 time in your rotation you had to hard cast your dots.
Yeah.
So you
And
had
then
hard
just kinda
cast Bio
go
and
on
Miasma.
track.
Yeah.
But it also lined up with Energy Drain whenever Energy Drain showed up, because you would have Energy Drain with your dots because you use Fester on your dots for more damage.
Yeah. Would you say? Go ahead.
Another thing I was going to say is I believe most new summoners are going to like the job because, one, you're actually summoning, kind
Yeah.
of.
Yeah.
And another thing is the old summoner, there were so many Ruin 3 casts. Like, that's basically all you did, and now you have so much more you can do, so it's going to be a lot more fun for anyone coming into Summoner.
Would you say that the skill floor for Summoner is going to be lower than current Summoner?
I feel like it's...
Because I feel like the skill ceiling, you know, you can kind of talk about that as well, but like the barrier to entry, I felt like, especially for me going into Summoner, was very much a I don't understand what half these buttons do, but I need to press these buttons in the rotation in order to get the damage out, but like I don't understand how all of this is like working together.
For Summoner, because of its strict rotation and everything, it's very daunting for anyone trying to pick up the class. And it's definitely follows into that phrase of it's hard to pick up, but it does follow through with it's easy to master. Like once you have the rotation down, or you cheese it like I did, you basically have it pretty good. Like there's definitely minor things like with any class that can make you like go, you know, there's a difference between like mastering and like being like maybe a purple orange parser versus being like the top of the game people. Like, yeah, those ones definitely know the rotation like in and out where they can get certain stuff and all that.
Yeah.
But I feel like with the new summoner, it might not, because it has a less strict rotation, people might think that it's more like dumbed down. But I actually think that the new summoner has a good balance of like approach to it, but also because now you have these 3 different phases that are basically replacing the old filler phases. Not exactly, because as some people might have heard from Larry, who is a summoner and posted his videos, he said like Titan right now is one of the highest burst phases. So you know, there's so many things you can plan around with the new phases, and probably with raid buffs, like, oh, do I actually use my raid buff, like not our raid buffs, but like the raid buffs, like would I actually use that on Titan or Firebird or Bahamut or Ifrit or Garuda? Like there's so many things that are up in the air, and like I believe that it's just going to open up so many more doors and a lot more customization with the class. Instead of, oh, you just go in this fight and you do your 2-minute rotation and that's it.
I'm really bored. We don't care. We want devotion.
Yeah. One thing that I do,
Which is not even devotion now.
one thing I do want to kind of get a little clear for my sake is I really don't know what the purpose of carbuncles are anymore.
It-
If we have all of these like rotations with like Ifrit, Titan, Garuda, Bahamut, and Phoenix, like it sounds to me like Bunkle isn't going to be out very often. So like,
Carbuncle
what level
will
you're at.
be out. Uh, yeah, it will be like leveling, but at the same time, Carbuncle actually does fit into the rotation because they purposely made it that to be able to cast what was Devotion.
is that
Sorry, I needed to look at what the
is that
name of the
Searing
It's
Light?
called
skill is.
Searing. It's
Yeah.
Searing Light now.
Yeah.
Yeah, Searing Light. So to be able to cast Searing Light, which is our raid buff,
Mhm.
increases damage dealt by self and nearby party members by 3% for 30 seconds. So it's different than what Devotion was, which was 5% for 15 seconds. So that's a difference.
You,
Right
you
there.
asked what is the point of Carbuncle? I'll tell you, it's the new devotion, and it's the fact that they have 2 charges of almost a mana ward that you can execute on
Yes.
a 1-minute
Um,
charge.
So yeah, to be able to cast Searing Light, you had to have Carbuncle out. So you can't be an Ifrit, Garuda, Titan, or Bahamut or Phoenix.
Okay.
You have to be in Carbuncle to cast your raid buff before you go into those. And then another thing is they've taken Titan's shield and they've now given that to Carbuncle. So now we actually have like 2 charges of mana ward.
No. And then
Yep.
yeah, Nox
Can
is
only be used
saying
during Carbuncle.
Bahamut and Phoenix will replace Carbuncle, but the other Eggies also do not replace Carbuncle. So it sounds like you do Bahamut and Phoenix still do more damage than Ifrit, Titan, Garuda? Or like is that speculated?
I haven't
So-
really looked at the potencies because I didn't want to like trust them because with the whole stat squish and stuff going on.
Yeah.
But I would believe that Bahamut and Phoenix will still outdo them
Okay. So it sounds
because
like
you
Bear in
still have
mind-
Revelation and plus Bahamut can use Death Flare now with Akmorn. So
oh wow.
with the skill the one that does the which is it?
Oh, are you talking about Enkindle?
Oh no, Astral Flow.
Astral
Ast-
Flow,
Astral Flow.
yes.
Whenever you go into certain the trances and the favors. So when you're in Bahamut, Astral Flow changes to Death Flare. When you're in Firebird, it changes to Rekindle, which is the new heal for Phoenix. And for Titan and all that stuff, that will be, Crimson Cyclone, Crimson Strike, Slipstream, Mountain Buster.
Hmm.
And it will only, I believe it's only used once during those, Death Flare is used once.
I believe each one is only used once. Yeah.
Yeah.
I see.
The more I look at this, the more I realize that here is your introduction to Summoner and Endwalker. These actions cannot be assigned to a hotbar.
Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
lot of actions
So many
that
things
will
are just
change
changing
depending
things.
on where you are.
But the other thing I wanted
Yeah.
to mention is it is good to bear in mind that both Bahamut and, essentially that summoning Bahamut is now its own Dreadworm trance, basically. It's going to
Yes.
function exactly like Phoenix did. So you're going to have access to the higher potency, single target and AoE GCDs to begin with. So it is almost certainly going to be one of your burst phases.
Mm-hmm. And it's actually it would be the very first one you go into in a fight.
Oh
So
wait,
more than not, it will match up with the raid buffs.
that's what I was wondering. So yeah, I was looking at the tooltips just now. It looks like you get Dreadworm Trance that upgrades to summon Bahamut, and then that upgrades to summon Phoenix once you get Bahamut to like. go
That's
away.
not even where the chain starts,
so-
but you're right.
There is a
Whoa.
little bit of a because of the description, it's very weird how
Yeah.
it says that because let's see oh wait, I don't have the traits up, but yes, Dreadworm will change to Bahamut, but it says for the Bahamut to Firebird,
Mhm.
it says it'll change the Firebird after the execution of
Yeah.
Bahamut.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it'll still say the same where you can't go into Phoenix until you've done it
Versus
to Bahamut
Dreadworm
once.
strictly says it changes to Bahamut at
Yeah.
this trait level.
Right.
Okay, that's interesting.
But the thing I was alluding to earlier is I'm pretty sure that Dreadworm Trance is at the end of the Aether Charge like upgrade line.
Oh yeah, that's also a new thing for leveling. That before you even get Dreadworm, you have another thing.
Summoner is going to be the coolest class to level.
Aether Charge? Where?
Level 6. Far down left if you're looking at the main actions under
yeah.
Carbuncle.
Gotcha.
I was
And
also
that's
gonna.
Hmm?
Yeah, sorry.
I was just say, I believe it functions similar to like I don't remember what it's called on Dragoon. I think it's Lance Charge, just the personal damage buff.
Okay.
Yes, I believe that's the case.
Well, yeah, this is really cool.
Every time I look at the tooltips for Summoner, like I realize that it's getting more than I thought it did. Than I originally
it
thought
got
it did.
quite a lot.
Yeah, we got you. Nuts.
Man.
They did take away a couple things that a lot of summoners are going to be confused with, like ones who have played it. But at the same time, like they've given us a lot of different changes, so it's been a pretty big rework.
I think it's
I
pretty.
They deleted the res, which is so cool.
I think
do
it's
think
pretty cool
that-
that the rotation and
Oh,
stuff doesn't change very
To
much.
mention about res,
Mhm.
so for any of you red mages out there, you no longer have to worry about summoner taking your spot in Prague for reses, because Bahamut and Firebird used to reduce our cast time, so we were able to spam the res during that. During our burst phases, but we will lose so much damage, but we could revive like maybe 3 or 4 people really like in a decent amount of time. But because our cast time is no longer reduced during Bahamut and Firebird, Summoner now only has the Swift res. That's it. So
Yeah,
for
that's-
Prague wise, Summoner has been nerfed in that department, but I mean, it doesn't really matter. They shouldn't have a res, but
That's what the red mages were worried about.
I eagerly await people bitching on Reddit about well, all these summoners say they're swifted from movement. Why don't they care about Prague?
I just wanted to point that out. Like,
Hmm.
it's a very minor thing, but it was actually something that some summoners would use as a advantage to having a summoner for Prague, because they could res people during their burst and lose damage.
Yeah. I
I'm
will
sorry,
say,
DPS. DPS greeters over here.
Yeah, we got that, Nux. I saw
I
that a
will
little bit
say
earlier.
that not that I've spent a ton of time with Summoner, being that
hate
I made
them.
Black Mage that as well. But I will say that given the new changes, it does seem like it'll be that much more intuitive for new players to pick up and just flow into. Like casters
Yeah.
don't really have the luxury that melee have, in that their buttons light up in order.
You know,
And
yeah. I think
But
in a
on
way,
Summoner, they'll have like 4 buttons, and those buttons will just change the picture, but you'll still
Like-
be hitting those 4 buttons.
I don't
Yeah.
think they officially said anything about it, but like I think in a way it's really cool because like the biggest change for casters is that you get traits and you get abilities that allow you to maintain the same rotation as you level. Whereas like
Unless
Right
you're Black
now,
Mage, but go on.
yeah, whereas like right now it's like it's really frustrating and annoying to like lose like half of your rotation as a summoner pre 70 or something like that.
Yeah,
You don't have
Summoner
any
did
damage
have that
against
problem.
you don't
Yeah.
have your nemesis, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and to a lesser extent, Black Mage is like that too. I mean, we'll get to Black Mage when we get to Black Mage, but I think it's awesome that they're smoothing out the leveling process for casters, because it definitely, as different as it feels from 1 to 80 currently, it's not going to feel as different, doing the same thing all over again. Black Mage, again, we'll get to Black Mage, but I think even Black Mage kind of benefits from a little bit of that quality of life.
Oh yeah. It's always annoying looking up a guide for your class and it's like, well, depending on your level, your rotation will be this and whatnot. But yeah, they definitely have worked on that problem with Summoner
Yeah,
going into Endwalker.
Bard has entered the chat. Fucking
Bard's rotation remains the same. There's just certain holes where you have to just hold your dick in your hand.
yeah, Bard feels like complete doo-doo pre-70. And then it felt alright.
I don't think Summoner or current Summoner feels all that great pre-70 either, which I guess is the point you were making. But
Yeah.
no, you are gonna have what amounts to your entire rotation by how long does it take to get the last carbuncle ability? 26. By the time you hit 26, you will functionally have the rotation you will have at 90, minus a couple odds and ends, and of course the Dreadworm trances, but that's not the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Your core will be the same from 26 onwards, which is kind of incredible.
Yeah.
Yes.
I might even start a new character just to see what it's like. Yeah. But anyways, it's
You're not just gonna pot your way to 80.
I mean, you know how I feel about stuff like that, but whatever.
You know how I feel about stuff like that? I think it's bullshit that you have to pay the same price to get your Red Mage up as you do to get your Summoner up, when the Summoner brings Scholar for free and the Red Mage is only like 20 levels.
And on that note, can we move on to
Fucking
Red Mage?
capitalism. Sure.
Like, are we done with Summoner?
There was one more thing I was gonna mention.
Yeah.
If you want, I did post a picture. You've seen this picture before, but anyone who wants to know like what Summoner, what skills and stuff you're probably gonna see at level 90, I made a little chart thing that might help.
Well, it's on my Discord, so why don't I just link my Discord?
Yep.
So people can see.
How very savvy of you.
Well,
look at
I
that.
also removed something I put on there about Worm Wave and Scarlet Flame because I'm not sure until Endwalker when I test that.
Oh, we forgot to talk about my favorite button on Summoner. The one that really gets gets me all to Twitter. The fact that no, not Physic. The fact that they get to keep Physic.
Oh,
the fact that they get to keep Resurrection. No, that's all fine and dandy. I think it's nice that Summoner gets to keep so much from Scholar when Scholar gets fuck all. But now they get Excog too.
Yeah, they get Excog as well.
Oh, they did?
They have an Excog-like ability only while they're in Phoenix.
Kindle.
Called Rekindle. It is
Yeah,
a heal over time.
Flow.
Yeah, it's a heal over time, but it also kicks in with an extra heal at the end of it. Once
Should
they're
have gave Try Disaster to Scholar.
Feels
I would just
bad,
like
man.
to point out this is how new Summoner is going to compete with Black Mage. And
Using
now
the
this
possession of an
actually,
Excog.
this ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous amount of extra utility. Okay, I didn't want to get upset about it. Okay, but
Here
since
I
Brad
am,
pointed it out, but since Brad had pointed it out, I'm just gonna piggyback off of him. So it's his fault. Okay, this is silly. Okay. I'm happy to see it because, hey, brand new summoners or whatever, they're going to go in and they're going to see all this stuff they can do to help out the party, and they're going to be very excited about that. And then it's like, it's not even going to be a matter of, oh, well, once you reach that point in end game, where, as Razh described earlier, where you have to make a conscious decision of, do I pick up half my party who die to hallowed ground, or do I get this damage off during my Phoenix? You're not even going to have that.
No, you don't have that anymore.
So I don't know, from the outside-ish looking in, compared to what Summoner is right now, I think it's going to be more intuitive. And as far as just raid utility comes, it's coming in hot with it. No pun intended.
That's Syrian Lights. It's like Jesus.
Yeah.
It's kind of bonkers to me, to be honest.
Yeah.
But I think we've reached a point now where the majority of the community that will play Summoner will be absolutely thrilled with it, and I think that's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
For my 2 cents there, since I know I've been fairly quiet.
You're saving up, you're charging up,
Mhm.
getting those polyglot stacks for when we start talking about Black
God.
Mage.
You got
Yeah.
2 mana wards. You got Excog S. You got.
Oh, yeah, remember that your healers tell you where to put that. You don't
you
use
got.
them.
You got
I mean,
devotion.
sure, your healers tell you where to put it, but like
You have to live
It
long
is-
enough to get there.
it's a bit more restrictive, I think, than we're making it sound. Like Rekindle is only going to be available to you during the Phoenix phase of your
Yes.
rotation.
Yeah.
The
So-
mana wards are only going to be available to you at the points where Carbuncle is available.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Which is outside of the demis. Yeah.
Right. Still a decent chunk, but like it's not like Black Mage who can put mana ward
Yeah,
anywhere.
you don't freely have
survive.
them. There's a slight limit.
Yeah.
It's like, what do you mean you're dying to damage? I see that you're in Titan. It's like, no, Titan's DPS now. Little pet Carbuncle, that's when I have a shield.
Yeah, I didn't mean to derail that. I know you wanted to go into Red Mage.
No worries.
Quote unquote wanted to.
I
know
think
Brad
Red Mage
wants
is
to talk
pretty
about Red
exciting
Mage.
now.
Mm.
It's literally just Bard with a sword, but yeah. All right, let's go talk about Red Mage.
You're just not Bard with a sword. We don't buff you nearly as well.
Very true.
You took Troubadour, you took Apex Arrow.
I did not take Apex Arrow.
Yes, you
my
did.
My button is way better than Apex Arrow.
Yeah, it's just Bard with a sword. I'm just telling you.
Bard does not have complete say and reign over line AoEs. Get fucked.
All right.
Dragoon would like to have a word with your manager.
Anyways,
Anyway, I've been on enough of these casts to know what you're going to ask. What is Red Mage? Red Mage is a test of your reading comprehension. That's actually what RDM stands for, is Reading Degrees of Mastery. Red Mage is the first job that well and truly forces you to read your tooltips, or at least that's been my experience with a lot of people. And not a lot of people do it, as evidenced by the people I see hard casting for Thunder. The core mechanic
what's wrong
of the
with
job.
hard casting for Thunder? What's wrong with
What's
that?
wrong with hard casting for Thunder is that the meat and potatoes of what it is to play a Red Mage is you have high potency spells with really long cast times for a normal job. They're pretty bog standard for Black Mage. And then you have lower potency spells with much faster cast times. Every time a Red Mage casts a spell that has a cast time to it, they get a stack of dual cast, and that makes it so that the next spell that they cast that would have a cast time is instant. So, for example, the spell they have to sort of start the ball rolling is called Jolt, or Jolt 2. That takes them 2 seconds to cast. After that goes out, they could cast their 5-second for Thunder instantly. They could cast their 10-second Raise spell instantly, as I'm told, and as I've seen happen. So you're basically bouncing back and forth between your quick spells and your long spells, and all the while you are building up these two resources of black mana and white mana. You eventually get to cash those in for the dash-in, flashy melee combo that you see in all the trailers. And that's Red Mage,
Mm,
in a nutshell.
okay.
It's pretty, I would say that it is pretty simple to understand, which is kind of been its enduring appeal over the years. I think I would be hard pressed to find a DPS job, at least in the game, whose rotation is easier than Red Mage, or a rotation that, I want to stress this, a rotation that feels more forgiving than Red Mage. Red Mage feels like it has one of the most forgiving rotations you could ever hope to find. It's not. It's actually incredibly strict in what you need it to do if you want it to line up with its two terrible buffs. But that is going to be getting slightly better in Endwalker, I will say that much.
Sounds good. So, what has really changed between Shadowbringers and Endwalker for Red Mage?
So the biggest thing that is changing about Red Mage is this is going to sound minor, but it is the introduction of what are called mana stacks. This is a trait that you're going to get at, I believe, level 68. And the way that this works is normally when a red mage in Shadowbringers dashes in and they perform the 3 hits of their melee combo, which cost 80 white and 80 black mana currently, they will cost 50 black and white in Endwalker. It changes some of the buttons on your hotbar to become Verflare and Verholy. And if you hit one of those, it changes another one of your buttons into Scorch. Essentially locking you into those 5 GCDs in order whenever you decide to spend your black and white mana, which is going to be when you have 80 of it. You don't want to wait too long. They are now instituting mana stacks such that you're getting 1 stack of this resource every time you complete an enchanted weapon skill. And as soon as you have 3 stacks of that, that is when your abilities will transform into Verflare, Verholy, and Scorch. And while that sounds like a very minor change, what it has allowed them to do is link the single target and AoE rotations together in a very intuitive way, such that the Red Mage AoE rotation in Shadowbringers has always been kind of boring. It's basically just A to B, C to B, A to B, C to B over and over again, and then spam one button called Moulinet. Because they have this unifying mana stacks mechanic now, you can go from spamming Moulinet into Verflare, Verholy, Scorch, and the new big capstone line AoE resolution. So you're not locked out of the coolest parts of your kit when you're in AoE mode. And since at least 80% of the reason people play Red Mage is to have access to those cool flashy abilities, this is a very positive change.
Nice.
It does look very nice. Like, I'm a little excited for Red Mage going into Endwalker.
Yeah.
Red Mage is all about the flash and the flourish. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's very core to their identity. It's core to their job fantasy of doing good and looking good while you do it. We don't need to do great. We only need to do good, as long as we look better than everyone else while we're doing it.
So, I forgot to talk about this with Summoner, but where would you kind of rate Red Mage's damage between the 3 casters?
Bottom.
Bottom? Why is that?
Well,
I mean,
because
aside from
that's how much damage they do.
But like, let's talk about like the logic behind that though, right? Because like the potencies are noticeably lower than both Summoner and Black Mage, but what do you mean specifically by prog text?
So one of the minor things that causes a hit or a hypothetical hit to Red Mage's upfront potencies is the fact that they have a raid buff, and I'll talk about that in just a bit because it is getting a change in Endwalker somehow, blissfully, finally. Finally. I mentioned upfront that you can use one of your short cast damage dealing spells and then instantly cast what should be a 10-second cast on your Razh. That is very quick. That is something that Red Mage has access to pretty much constantly. The only time that Red Mage does not have access to their Razh is either A, because they are completely out of MP, in which case you're probably in week 1 of a new 24-man. I feel for you. Just remember that you are gods of that content and you should be treated as such.
Or they're dead.
It's before level 54. Because 54 is when Red Mage gets their low potency heal, which has a cast time and therefore can be used even if there is no target to proc a stack of dual cast and get off an instant res.
Razh is a level 64 ability as well. So like if you don't have Vercure,
if you don't have Razh, yeah, I suppose that's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
The amount of the penalty that seems to have been inflicted on Red Mage's damage, number 1, I think because of this access to a Razh, and number 2, because their rotation is so straightforward that it would seem counterintuitive to reward them with very high damage. when other jobs have to either A, obey a very strict rotation a la Summoner, or B, have to work very hard to keep uptime and keep optimization like Black Mage. It would seem to make sense to me that Red Mage should do the least. It upsets me that their utility is just raising, which is changing in Endwalker, as you bitched about. We're getting Troubadour, but we're getting Troubadour, but better.
Yeah.
We're getting Troubadour plus Mantra. Get fucked. Once every 2 minutes, we're great. Everyone loves us. Literally 99% of people are playing Summoner next tier. It doesn't fucking matter.
I don't know. I'd be playing. I'll probably be playing a lot of Black Mage still, but again, we're getting to Black Mage soon. I promise.
I did mention that I wanted to talk about their raid buff, which is Embolden.
Yes.
For context, the way Embolden works now is, and I'm not trying to be hyperbolic, it sucks in 2 different ways, which is too many ways to suck. It works to increase the magical damage that you deal by a certain amount, 10%, which is not nothing. That's a big number. And it increases the physical damage of your party members by 10%, which is great as long as you don't have anyone else in the party who's using magical damage, such as your healers, or if you're in a double, magic DPS comp, that other guy. That's not great, but those 10% numbers aren't sticking around for long either because the effect decays over time. The buff lasts for 20 seconds. Every 4 seconds, the effects are cut in potency by 20%. Now, that kind of sort of works for Red Mage because of how Red Mage's damage sort of ramps up very quickly. So the idea is that their raid buff is getting less powerful as their moves are getting more powerful, and it kind of just keeps the whole thing on balance the entire time. But a lot of other jobs don't really work that way.
Yeah.
So as a result of that, if you've ever tried to look up a Red Mage guide, you've probably found that they have like 4 or 5 different openers. They've got the 3/8 opener, the 3/10, the 5/10, the 5/8. Because you essentially have to bend over backwards to use Embolden at a time where it will benefit your party, oftentimes more than it will benefit you. They are changing it in Endwalker so that now it's increasing your magic damage and it's increasing all damage dealt by your party members. The decay effect is still there, which still kind of sucks, but at least now Red Mage isn't quite so restrained in what kind of comps that it can work in. Which I guess would be, it has to be the only magic dealer or magic DPS player, and then you'd want an Astro and a Scholar to minimize the amount of damage lost by not buffing a white mage. Anyway. Manification is also getting changed. I suppose that's worth mentioning. Manification is a weird one, where right now it doubles your current total of black and white mana, but it also gives you a small damage buff to basically all the damage you deal. And it works into the opener, basically. You get yourself up to at least 40 of black and white, hit Manification, and instantly go into your melee combo, because to do otherwise would be... It only lasts long enough for like 1 melee combo's worth of time, so you have to go into it instantly. Now it's going to be stacks, which is great, and it's going to give you a flat 50-50 of both, so it is literally just a free buffed melee combo.
Oh, I like that. That's pretty cool.
And once you hit 90, it will give you 6 stacks, and that's nice. Granted, that's the same point in time when you will have access to Resolution, the new combo ender, but like up until that point, it's weird. I don't actually know how you'll use Manification in an optimal way sub 90, but I'm not going to worry about it too much. I have a feeling that you're basically going to want to hit it maybe midway through a melee combo sub 90, but I'll rely on the smarter dummy fighters and math nerds. Is there anything else to talk about? Their movement skills are getting charges now, which is fine. It's probably still going to be used almost exactly the way it does now. I believe the reason that they are getting charges is because I don't think Manification resets your movement to tools anymore.
It doesn't say anything about
It,
that.
it recovers. You recover a charge for it. Okay.
Okay.
So, engagement has now been made the exact same potency as displacement, which means if you see a red mage rather backflip off the stage or backflip into an AoE, that was a conscious choice they made. You need to get them into help because that was a cry for help.
That to me is a little bit interesting, because now I would say engagement is probably the more superior ability.
Almost certainly,
yeah,
because the animation for displacement is so long that it's the only thing you can weave.
Yeah.
Whereas engagement allows for double weaves, but
Yeah.
It basically allows you to use displacement for what it should arguably be used for, which is a tactical withdrawal.
Yeah.
It should be a movement utility tool as
Instead
opposed
of-
to something you're forced to use for damage.
Yeah. That's cool. I was gonna
Is
say.
there anything else?
Let's talk a bit about resolution, because we've talked about it a little bit, but like, what does it do?
Oh, it's a line AoE of decently high potency that comes out after you successfully land a Scorch. So what was originally a 3-hit melee combo and then became a 4-hit melee combo in Stormblood, and then a 5-hit combo in Shadowbringers is now a 6-hit combo in Endwalker with one more fancy flourishy move added to the end of it. Now, I will say that it probably came part and parcel. I don't know which would have come first, but I would imagine Resolution being a line AoE is part of what led them to change Scorch, Verholy, and Verflare into AoEs and kind of work that into your AoE dungeon rotation.
Yeah.
But no, it's fancy. It looks cool. It does a little bit to boost your black and white mana back up, but that's basically what I would expect.
Yeah.
Keeps the rotation running.
Do you mind if I cut in?
Sure.
No, not at all.
I was actually I forgot to mention that about Summoner. They made dungeons a lot easier because now, during a lot of your bursts and stuff, your AoEs are a lot more simpler to do.
That's good.
That's good.
I guess
Because
Black Mage
before
isn't
you had to do
being
like
AoE
single
anymore.
targets and then you could do your AoEs and shit. But now you can actually choose between AoEs or single targets.
Right, because if you were a summoner in a dungeon, you were basically having to hardcast your dots, or even just try disaster on a mob and then spread it.
Well, dots as well, but also when you went into Bahamut, instead, like, you'll do like outburst or something. But now because your attacks change during Bahamut, you don't have to worry about that.
You just get fancy buttons. Yeah.
Yeah, you just do the AoE instead of the single target.
I honestly still feel like there are going to be summoners crying that mobs are dying too fast.
Yeah, which is another thing with Firebird. You used to do the combo of what was it? You used to do Fountain of Fire and then Brand of Purgatory, but now Fountain of Fire is the single target, while Brand of Purgatory is the AoE.
So it's just much more straightforward.
Yeah, it's a lot more straightforward. You just do one skill instead of just two different skills and working them out. Sorry to cut in, but when you mentioned that, I was like, oh yeah, the Summoner had something like that
So
too.
we do want to bring that up to par with Black Mage. No, I get it.
Yeah.
Did I say everything you wanted me to say about Resolution? Because it definitely sounded at the start like you had a bone to pick with a line AoE.
I mean, Red Mage is just bard with a sword. That's it. That's all I wanted to say.
I just don't understand how you can possibly make that argument, given that they don't have a song rotation or anything comparable to it. They don't have dots.
Well, you have
They
all
don't
the
have a
best
billion
dance
OGCDs. They don't buff in the party except for a little bit once every 2 minutes.
They took the most important parts of bard and just gave it to Red Mage. It's a bard with a sword.
They took the dance moves and the fancy hat.
Yeah.
And they gave it to Red Mage.
Exactly.
You just talking about like the fucking artifact gear aesthetic?
No. I'm talking about the important parts.
All right, you know what? You need to change the topic because if you don't, I'm gonna go off on like a 10-minute rant about how
I'm sorry if you
Red
guys.
Mage is a proc-based job and it shouldn't be.
So you guys are gonna hate me, but Red Mage is just a caster version of Bard.
It's not though. It's if anything, it's a caster version of Dancer.
I know.
No.
I just wanted to make the Ver joke, but go ahead.
Nah,
Fucking
it's
I know.
Virgins.
I'm simple.
Yes.
my static, everybody. All right, let's go ahead and move on to Black Mage.
On a side note, I found it amused me a little bit that every now and then throughout the summoner and the red mage talk, folk alluded to black mage as if it was this giant in the mountains,
This Titan looming in the distance.
just waiting.
Bronos cometh.
While you spent your time learning all these new skills and rotations, I studied the fire.
Summoners, like while Summoner was tossing buttons off their hotbar left and right, I was picking them up and adding them. Blizzard 2 still exists. Don't at me.
No, I was casting the same spell on the dummy for an hour and 25 minutes straight 12 times in the last month.
Not an hour and a half. An hour and a half would mean that I wasn't optimizing properly.
Hey, you know what? At least Summoner moved away from casting Rune 3, so they're not casting the same button all the time like Black Mage. See, they made them less like Black Mage. I get it.
So Oso, other than being the best caster, obviously, bar none, don't at you. If you were explaining to a sprout who is interested in playing a caster what it is, what the niche that Black Mage occupies is, how would you do so?
The funny thing about that is that the answer hasn't changed at all from from what I can tell, from Heaven's Word to Stormblood to Shadowbringers and now going into Endwalker. Like, Black Mage is a class valued for the immense damage that they can dish out. And that is what they will tell you on the front of the box. And it isn't until you manage to open that box and glance to the fine print just beneath the cover where it says your mileage may vary.
Boy, will it.
If you manage to look at that before you are surprised and glorified by all the pop-ups of the explosions and the xenoglossies and the aether skating and all that, and it's fantastic. It's a really good time. You should try it. But boiling it down, Black Mage is the typical turret type caster class where your main objective in any given fight is to stand still as much as you can and do as much damage as you can within those times you are allowed to stay stationary. As far as selling it to a sprout, which I interpret that question to be, it's honestly the appeal of explosions and doing a lot of damage is the thing that speaks to people when it comes to Black Mage. And it isn't until they try it in a bunch of fights and they either love it or they hate it that they really see that it's not just an all-out assault. It's a pretty tactical class when it comes to fight by fight optimization, and that is typically what turns people off of it. But
and then turns the fetishists really onto it.
yeah,
I mean,
I
did I say I meant specialists? Sorry.
So, yeah. Well, how about people that have heard about Black Mage that hear that it's difficult? What makes Black Mage specifically just a difficult class? Because I think we've talked about it before, but about how the rotation is relatively simple. But what about Black Mage is hard if it's not the rotation?
Yeah, you and I were talking about it earlier a little bit before. Yeah. And to be honest, I absolutely agree. Black Mage, on its surface, is not a difficult class to just pick up and play at all. What makes Black Mage difficult is the fact that it plays near completely different from every other DPS job in the game, in that you are not allowed freedom of movement like you would have on a melee or a physical ranged, you are punished heavily if you miss any GCDs, because all of your damage is on the GCD. You don't have damaging LGCDs to, oh well, I messed up this cast. I'll throw out a, I'll throw out a, what is that one move that Samurai has? It's a Sene, whatever it's
Stabby
called.
stab.
You know, have anything like that.
Yeah.
So it really comes down to your ability to pick up a fight. When you're playing Black Mage in content, you're not learning the class, you're learning a fight. And it's pretty different every single time. You have to find a way not to just do mechanics, but to complete them with as little amount of effort on your part, so that you can, which is how you would optimize your ability to do damage during difficult mechanics, such as, say, Ice Slit in E8S or Earth and Fury in E12S phase 1.
Yeah.
You know, it's not a question of can you do the damage. Black Mage has the damage. Anybody can cast a bunch of Fire 4s and a Fire 1 and a bunch more Fire 4s and Despair and then regen their MP in Umbral and then just do that.
I can confirm I can do that, and I'm an idiot.
The issue comes in that
You have to do the dance.
you're
while doing
challenged.
that.
Yes, you're challenged with being able to have the foresight to handle mechanics 10 steps ahead of when they actually happen.
Mhm.
And I believe I put it this way earlier, but Black Mage is one of those classes where once you've mastered a fight with it, it makes that fight look very, very easy. To anyone just watching, like say if you were to record a POV of the first time you took Black Mage into, say, Puppet's Bunker, for example. And anyone who plays Black Mage extensively knows the pain of taking it into a 24-man.
Yeah.
But, you know, just humoring this idea of the first time you take Black Mage into Puppet's Bunker, or any of the near 24-man specifically, versus the 20th time you've taken Black Mage into that same fight.
Mhm.
By then, you should have seen a tremendous increase in performance. Like, you'll figure out these things that you had no idea you could do the first time you did the fight, or maybe even the 5th time you did the fight. By the 15th time or the 20th time, you're realizing, oh, there's a specific spot I can stand for the second boss where I can avoid the air raids very, very easily. Or I don't have to move around the entirety of that little pocket you get. You can just move into the center and move back out. Things like that, you know. It's a very satisfying learning curve for people who want to deal with that learning curve. But Black Mage is a class that demands you to obey that learning curve. If you try to muscle it, you're going to get destroyed. And that happens a lot sooner than you getting really, really good at it will happen. And that's what turns people off of it, you know. And I'm not trying to say that to be like, oh, well, you just need to get good, because, you know, like any other class in this game, you know, Black Mage isn't for everybody, you know. But
You're
that's
just
why
saying
people,
that getting good is more than half the fun, basically.
yeah, you know, it's a different kind of challenge compared to what you would see on, say, I mean, speaking from my personal experience, Ninja, where, you know, it's a difficult class to pick up because you've got all these buttons and it's relatively fast paced still. But once you've gotten it down, you know, you realize quickly that you're doing the same thing for the most part every minute. And you
So-
actually have a fair amount of breathing room to get that done, as opposed to Black Mage, where it's like you have to create these breathing rooms for yourself, in a sense.
Would you be willing to go so far as to say that Black Mage has probably the highest skill expression ceiling of any of the DPS?
I would absolutely say so, and not necessarily because of the skill gap, as I explained it, but mainly because, in my opinion, Black Mage is the only class in the game that allows you to play a little differently from the next Black Mage and still put out really good results. For example, say as a ninja, if you miss Trick, you're automatically a bad ninja. You know, if you
Yes.
don't get all of your bursts in Trick, if you don't get your kill show, if you don't get your TCJ every other Trick window, If you misalign your dream within a dream in your assassination, automatically you are playing ninja wrong.
Yeah.
But with Black Mage, you've got the standard rotation and you have the non-standard rotation. And to anyone who swears by the standard rotation, they would look at the non-standard one and think it was a bunch of baloney. But actually, it's extremely good. But you also have to be very, very skilled at Black Mage to pull it off. And the numbers speak for themselves if you can do that. But that doesn't mean that the non-standard rotation is just leagues ahead of the standard one. The standard one is also very, very good.
I
know.
am a big proponent of just playing the standard rotation, not because I refuse to learn the other one. I'm just lazy.
Yeah,
but can't
and that's
confirm,
absolutely fine.
Yeah, they could still be competitive with each other. The damage differences between the two is quite minor. But that's again where optimization comes in. Like if you like a job that much that you want to optimize it, even just like a 0.01% increase in your damage is more than enough to convince you to learn another rotation.
Yeah.
Because it's enough.
Black Mage is truly a class that you, as a player, can tailor to your preference. And the main expression in that is the amount of spell speed that you're comfortable playing with. And speaking as someone who's played from the slowest slow to the fastest fast spell speeds, it does. Unless you really, really sit there and hit a dummy for way too long, you won't notice like all the little minor things that having a tremendous amount of spell speed in the 3800s will allow you to get away with, as opposed to only having 2000, where it feels much stricter. But because of that, you appreciate the few guaranteed casts you can get.
Mm-hmm.
And the main thing really optimizing Black Mage where it comes in is, now that we have far more movement than I ever thought we would ever get, and then some, being that we're getting, amplifier, and follow is going to be an instant cast spell, and we're becoming even more mobile.
Yeah.
But just because we have all these tools, it doesn't mean that optimizing your movement is going to be easier than ever.
It's not free. You just have more tools.
Yeah. Like you can pick a suboptimal spell to throw out to handle a mechanic, but if you have the sense to throw out an instant cast to handle a mechanic, you're already halfway there as far as Black Mage goes. The important thing is realizing, okay, I can't just play this fast and lose.
Yeah.
I need to have the foresight to set up tools ahead of time so that when this mechanic is upon me, I can more easily breathe and handle it while keeping my uptime as high as I can, without having to sacrifice casts altogether to cry as I move myself out of it without casting anything because I didn't have a Xenoglossy, or I overwrote my Thunder dot early with a proc that I could have saved for a couple more seconds, etc. It's a lot of the optimization in Black Mage's gameplay is very, very, very minor. You really have to go back over the tape in a sense to realize, oh man, I could have used that over here. If I didn't use that here, I would have had that to handle that anti-air, or this this wide angle, or I could have dodged this Art of Darkness during empty plane without losing uptime. It's a lot of it is trial and error, but that kind of thing appeals to a lot
a
of
certain
people.
class of player.
So
yeah,
it's nice. The skill expression
that's
really
good.
comes in with your tenacity, with getting into the nitty gritty of what little things you can do to add up into a gigantic return in the long run.
Mm-hmm.
And that to me is what really makes Black Mage beautiful.
That's good.
And that's
You
what
heard
sells
it
it.
from Osa. Meld tenacity on your Black Mage sets.
Before we get him any angrier, let's go ahead and talk about the changes to. Let's go ahead and talk about the changes to Black Mage going into Endwalker. I don't want to give you enough time to react to that comment, but whatever. Let's go ahead and talk about Black Mage changes. They got a few actually, and most of them are quality of life. But why don't you go ahead and take it away, Yoso?
Yoshida's favorite.
And I love that fact so much, dude. To be honest, most of the changes were in the AoE.
Mhm.
Most of the big changes, anyway. And that is, they're making Blizzard 2 and Fire 2 spells you can use again. You can put them back on your bar, and you don't have to feel bad.
Oh man.
Feel
Essentially,
bad at
as it
lower
works,
levels.
it's still gonna feel bad at lower levels, but hey, you can fill your hotbar again with these spells, and they'll actually do things for you in AoE at the higher end in a post level 80 content.
I have to
Mm.
redo my bars again.
I mean, that's a given for
Christ.
literally every job.
So essentially, as things work right now, the single target rotation in large part is unchanged.
Mhm.
The biggest addition to it is the addition of Paradox, which it's a new spell, unexpected. Right now, it says it does 510 potency. I personally would not go off of this until we're knee deep in Endwalker and see what the finished product is. But it's essentially a free, extra strong version of Fire 1 that you can use to extend your Astral Fire phase so that you do not have to use Fire 1 and settle for Fire 1 potency. You can instead use Paradox and be happy with Paradox potency to extend your Astral Fire phase before you lead into Despair.
And it lets you fish for Firestarter procs.
And it also, yes, it also
If
lets
you're
you fish
if you're
for
in fire.
You can sharp cast it, and it functions the same way that Fire 1 does, just with more potency and a prettier animation.
Mhm. Speaking of
Um,
sharp cast, though,
Wait, well, on that topic, will Paradox consume a sharp cast proc or stack rather if you're in ice?
I don't believe it might actually.
I just don't know what effect it would get you if you did that.
It would still get you Fire 3. Paradox is just a stronger Fire 3.
Well, Paradox
Fire
has different effects depending on whether you're in fire or ice when you cast it.
refreshes the duration of Umbral Ice on the effect of Paradox.
makes
Fire
it
Sector.
it gets me a little bit like not confused, but curious as to whether or not you want to cast Paradox in both phases, because you get it once for fire and once for ice, if I'm reading everything correctly.
Well, you would want to cast it in Ice.
Yeah.
Because if you don't cast it in Ice, you essentially overwrite it, going back into Astral Fire.
That's what I was looking at. Yeah.
So, if the question is if it will give you a Firestarter proc, well, ideally, if you have Sharp Cast up going into Umbral Ice, nine times out of 10 you're going to be using it to refresh your Thunder Dot. But because we're getting another charge of it, we're just looking at the duration of Sharp Cast.
Quick note for later. Black Mage really benefits / relies on team-wide optimization for positioning, stack teams, ethereal targets, etc., often leading to Black Mage unique strats more than any other job. There's only so much one can improve on their own.
That is true also.
Quick other comment, Black Mage is planning the job. Yeah, we were talking about that a little bit earlier. I think hopefully you saw that a little earlier, Del. But yes, in short, I'm sure Oso and I both 100% agree with that.
I do object. I mean, you're absolutely right to call it that, but saying Black Mage unique strats makes it sound like, oh man, this is a strat that you can only pull off when you have a Black Mage. It's a strat you only have to do if you have a Black Mage.
I mean, have you seen the fucking cursed ass Titan strat?
Yes,
God,
that is,
fuck
I'm
that
sure
shit,
that is the exact one we're talking about.
dude. Fuck that strat. Just let your Black Mage stand still, and everything revolves around that fucker. Like, okay, dude.
And speaking as the healer and with complete sincerity, I would rather find a way to let you die in Shiva so that I don't have to do it in Titan. I'll res you after the mechanic's done.
To be honest, being that we're going to have so many more uses of Sharp Cast, I mean, as it is right now, it is optimal to use Sharp Cast on Thunder, provided you're not overriding it far too early.
When is the best time to reapply Thunder?
With a proc, the soonest is 7 seconds. you can override it at 7 seconds,
Okay.
as long as you're using a proc. But obviously, it is better if you can hold it for a little bit longer and override it as it's about to fall off.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're hard casting it as it falls off every single time.
Yeah.
But if I remember right, they're also increasing the duration of the dot.
Black Mage Relative is cool, but it requires your entire group to not be dumb and or lazy. Yep.
I am
100%.
lazy and dumb. Thunder
Yeah.
3 is 21 seconds.
21.
Or no, I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
24.
24 seconds. The
Yeah.
Thunder, the proc is 21 seconds.
Oh, they do enhance that.
Yeah, they
Same bread.
increase
Yeah, I got you.
which is so nice. But I mean, hell, and it's not as I mentioned the fact that it's optimal to do thunder, to use sharp for thunder because, yeah, it's not as great to fire one it, but if you do that, then you have the QOL of being able to extend your astral fire phase in case you need to for movement,
Mm-hmm.
which is an extremely nice thing to be able to do. Not
Yeah.
only that, but if someone hears, oh well, it's optimal to use it for thunder, they might get the idea that it's better to hold sharp cast to use it and exclusively on thunder, which is not the case. You want to use it on whichever one you are coming up to.
Oh, I didn't know that actually. Again, I'm just a lazy black mage, but like, I know I'm decent enough at the rotation that I can stay almost competitive.
Yeah, you just want to use sharp cast as near to on cooldown as possible,
Okay.
but if the option is, oh well, I'm coming into, to give like an example, you have 2 stacks of Xenoglossy, well, 2 stacks of Polyglot, you're getting ready to cap on your third just before you have to use Fire 1, so you have to throw in your Astral Fire phase, so you have to throw out the Xeno, but you don't want to keep sharp cast on cooldown, but you also don't want to use it on Fire 1. The question becomes, well, do I just pass it off and just let it sit off cooldown until I go into Umbral, and then I use sharp cast with that quick Umbral, with that quick Blizzard 3, and then thunder it? Like, no, you want to just use it on that Fire 1. Just blow the Xenoglossy, use it on the Fire 1, and then end your Astral with it after Despair. It's better
Oh.
that way. Then if that means you have to hard cast the Thunder to refresh it in your Umbral, like, it's better than holding onto that sharp cast.
Okay. Okay. Good to know. Context for others: the proc duration is increased by 3 seconds from 18 to 21. That is nice. I agree.
It is very nice.
Yeah, procs will shift Black Mage GCD since Firestarter, Thundercloud are GCDs. Black Mage GCD drifting is expected / normal. Yeah, and I think that it's actually like that's one of my favorite parts about Black Mage just in general is like there's no real like burst phase for Black Mage because your main damage phase is your burst phase. Your Fire 4 phase is your burst phase. There's no real like okay, save this cooldown for like your 2 minute your 2 minute burst because you're always bursting. There's no 2 minute like rotation or anything like that. Which makes it very simple. Which makes it, in my opinion, like one of the more simple jobs to learn. If you just want to learn the GCD rotation, it is by far one of the most simple GCD rotations among all DPS.
Like, the challenge with Black Mage, in no way is the rotation. It's being able to continue doing that rotation without messing it up due to getting blindsided by movement requirements in a fight.
Or having a boss target you to an unfair extent.
Makes optimization madness since both
I don't want to talk
RNG
about
and
it.
proc RNG. Yeah, okay, got you, Del. Yeah. Like I said, I've only ever scratched the surface of Black Mage. I never really took it any deeper than just like, oh, I just play this in DF. Sometimes I take it into like extreme PFs because I'm a spiteful fucker that whenever I see a dance partner, I'm just like, all right, fucking bet.
I tell you what, Black Mage, my favorite EX to take Black Mage into was Suzaku. That fight, you will either learn to slide cast or you will die. And it is wonderful.
Throwing you to the wolves.
Oh, you know what I want to try and do one of these days? I want to see like does cover still work though the same way that it does way back where like if you cover somebody and then like you would have gotten knocked up, it just knocks up the paladin instead. because I want to
Oh
see
my
if you can
God,
like
that
run a
was-
circuit with like a paladin cover tether and just have them fly straight the fuck up. Because that's not, you know. Now that we were
Game.
talking about Suzaku, yeah. Never mind. Okay, back on topic.
I honestly, as far as having a second sharp cast, since we're getting
Suzaku's
so
left.
many of them, you know, it might even make it easier to just throw it out for the extra
Put the one
QLL
right.
and
Custom
Astral
weapon
Fire.
assist,
Because if I'm looking at the timers right, you would be getting that other charge of sharp cast back either as or just before your first thunder
Mm.
falls off, and that's minus like the constant chance of getting a free thundercloud proc anyway.
Yeah.
So it kind of like sets up itself to continuously be sharped from there, but you also have an extra one to throw into your Astral Fire on Paradox,
Yeah.
which, you know, QLL wise, that's very nice. That's gonna be a little more forgiving for new black mages coming in trying to keep their heads above water. It's just that much more you can do to keep your Astral extended,
Yeah.
which if you remember to use Sharpcast.
Yeah, but aside from that, I think
Speaking of helping new black mages keep their head above water, they've reduced the recast time on Mana Font, so you are now more likely to have it up when you die and get rezzed, so that you can start your rotation again. That's what that's for, right?
Oh my
Oh
god.
yeah, they brought
Fucking
it down to
fucking
but,
triggered me. No, you don't. You actually don't. You don't use Mana Font to regain MP. Like you just Blizzard.
Actually, no, idiot.
No, you Blizzard. You Blizzard 3 because Black Mage. So Black Mage's MP is just. It's just what do you call? It's not so much a resource as it is it's a timer. It's a timer is what I like to call it because like you only have so much time to be able to like cast all your Fire Force before you're forced due to lack of MP to swap to your Ice phase, and you just like reset your timer essentially to go back into Fire phase.
I didn't give a a baby's guide to Black Mage, did I?
It's okay.
In addition to being a timer, though, you do use it for your combat res.
Yeah, exactly. Black Mage should have gotten stacks of Firestarter and Thundercloud, like Bard Bloodletter got stacks.
See, I told you the black mage was the actual bard.
No.
That would have been nice, but
Well, it's also
also
an annoyance every 2
I
minutes.
think
Hope for
it would
Triple
be a
Despair,
little
Mana
clunky,
Font, Fire for Despair. Yeah.
at least with Thunder, because you're like, yeah, sure, you're constantly getting stacks of Thunder, but like, are you just gonna be sitting on, you know, at best maybe 2 stacks of Thunder Cloud, or at worst, if you're super lucky / unlucky, you have like 5 stacks of Thunder Cloud, and you're still waiting for your first dot to finish.
And they're all ticking down, and it's like, you know, those are all GCDs too. So it's like, all right, so do I fire 4 right here, or do I just stay in Blizzard and just continue to throw out my Thunder 3?
Yeah.
Thunder 3
like
procs.
for fire 3, that would be nice because like, sure, you want to end your Astral with Firestarter, but
It's
if
like-
you can get Fire, well, no, because if you get Firestarter from Paradox and Umbral for whatever reason, then when you go back into Astral, it'll be an instant cast, and that would be trash.
I'm sure you'd have back-to-back Thundercloud procs after spamming usage and then just head desk. Yeah, pretty much. My only argument against like multiple stacks of Fire 3 procs is that the only way you get Fire 3 procs is if you fired 1 or what do you call Paradox?
Paradox,
right?
Oh yeah.
But like you only do that once per Fire phase. So like
Yeah, exactly.
it
It still wouldn't really work.
yeah, you'd only really be wishing for Thunder 3 procs, at which point it's like, again, like you're just sitting in Blizzard phase, just tossing them out, you know, Oprah Winfrey style. You get a Thunder 3, you get a Thunder 3. Like,
just better scathe at that point.
yeah, basically.
To whoever said
Firestarter for
proposed that
symmetry.
change, I want you to know
Yeah.
I did genuinely think that through because I thought it would be cool, but honestly, it would be a little clunky.
Just a little
Mostly on the Thunder side.
Yeah.
But as far as the AoE changes to Black Mage, though,
Your Thunder
Freeze has
Violence
been
stacks more
changed
than
quite a
did.
bit.
I agree, Naka.
Freezes.
Mhm. Oh, I was just
uh,
replying to chat. Sorry. Freeze got.
Freeze, as it works right now, it's a fairly quickly casted AoE spell. You instantly get uh, 3 stacks of Umbral Ice, and you get 1 stack of Umbral Heart. Um, you don't really use it in the single target rotation, but if you mess up and die or something, it's a good way to kind of try to get the ball rolling again. You
I
can
have
Umbral,
often seen that. Yeah.
Yeah.
you go into Ice, you can Enochian, which by the way, Enochian is now going to be a trait,
Mm-hmm. Quality
which
of
is
life.
a nice little quality of life as
Hell
well.
yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, it's in single target scenarios. Freeze is just for recovery if you mess up, or for a reopener if you choose to do it that way. How they've changed it now, it's basically going to be an AoE version of Blizzard 4, where you use a spell and it immediately gives you 3 stacks of Umbral Hearts. I guess now is a good time to give the baby's guide to Black Mage because it kind of leads into why Umbral Hearts are important. But like Arden mentioned, it's kind of like a timer. I look at it more as a battery where it's constantly charging and discharging. When you're in Umbral phase, it's your MP regeneration phase. You regenerate MP, hopefully up to max, and while you're in there, you throw out Blizzard 4. Blizzard 4 gives you 3 stacks of Umbral Hearts, and all they do is reduce the MP cost of your fire spells, which allows you, when you exit Umbral Ice phase and go into Astral Fire phase, to cast 2 extra Fire Force than you would be able to if you had not. So through rotation goes, you're in Ice, you've regenerated your MP, you've Blizzard forward to get your 3 Umbral Hearts, you fire 3 to go into Astral Fire, you do 3 Fire Force. Those first 3 Fire Force each will consume a stack of Umbral Heart. You fire 1, or in Endwalker, you're going to be paradoxing to extend your Astral Fire phase before Enochian runs out, and then you finish with 3 more Fire Force, which you are able to do because the first 3 Fire Force had their MP cost reduced thanks to the Umbral Hearts that you got from Blizzard 4. After you throw out your 6th Fire 4, you have enough MP left over to dish out a Despair, which is just a finisher to your Astral Fire phase. From there, you are absolutely tapped out on MP, and you can cast Blizzard 3 to go right back into Umbral Ice and start it all up from the top. And it just loops like that. Yeah, you throw your dot in there. It's kind of fast and loose with the dot refresh now in Shadowbringers. You kind of, depending on your spell speed and your luck with the proc, you try to refresh it at the optimal time as much as you can. Typically, that'll happen in Umbral Ice after your Astral Fire has run its course and you've finished with Despair. It honestly depends on your spell speed and your luck with the proc. But anyway, in AoE, Blizzard Freeze is going to function much the same way that Blizzard 4 does for the single target rotation. You use Freeze, you get your 3 stacks of Umbral Hearts, and you will use High Fire 2 to go into your Astral Fire phase. And looking at it, to me, it seems like they wanted to make the AoE rotation very similar to the single target rotation. As it is right now, the AoE rotation is pretty free flowing.
You get the enhanced flare, right? Every time you high fire too.
Yeah, that's a sour point with Black Mages currently in the community because they've lessened the potency on flare, and the enhanced flare is just the potency that it is currently right now in Shadowbringers. But again, I don't want to look at the potencies until we're knee deep in Endwalker.
Yeah.
Especially potencies, they can change like several times overnight. So I think the bigger thing to look at is the new way that the AoE rotation is going to flow. And definitely the AoE rotation is what changes the most from in the leveling journey.
Yeah.
Like new skills come and go very, very frequently every couple levels in AoE.
Yeah.
And once you reach 60, the single target rotation feels like it's beginning to be fleshed out because you've gotten Fire 4. But AoE, until you get certain traits that let you cast let you cast ice spells with 0 MP after using fire spells. Well, you have to transpose, and that feels like crap, and it's not great. But with the changes here, without having to kind of reactively use things as you get them in AoE right now, you're going to be able to dish out your AoE in Astral with High Fire 2. As Arden mentioned, when you use High Fire 2, it gives you a stack of Enhanced Flare. You're going to have 2 maximum charges of it. And what that does, as stated, it just increases the potency for that next flare. It's going to be pretty nice feeling. And then once you've used your flares, you'll be tapped out on MP. And then at that point, you will High Blizzard 2 and go back into Umbral Ice to regenerate your MP, throw out Freeze to get your Umbral Hearts, and then it kind of loops like that. I think I mentioned it earlier, but Foul, which is a casted spell right now, is becoming an instant cast spell, which is going to be very nice, especially if we have AoE situations in Savage. I'm hoping for it. It would be nice to use Foul in Savage.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's gonna be pretty cool.
Yeah.
That was one other thing.
Looking around, I don't see much else. But I'm sure you'll remember.
There's not much to say about Amplifier.
Yeah.
We get an extra we get an extra polyglot every 2 minutes, which is nice. To address one specific thing, I know that they, consolidated a lot of the timers for buff windows and whatnot to the 1 minute and 2 minute markers, but now Ley Lines is remaining at 90 seconds.
You and Monk can complain together.
To be honest, I'm okay with it for the same-ish reason that Warriors were okay with IR still. Well, it's not going to be on 60 seconds. I mean, it's not going to be on 90 seconds going into Endwalker. It's going down to 60, which awesome. But it's like, we now have Fire on 2 minutes. We're getting more uses of Sharp Cast. We're going to have Paradox to throw into our filler, and Umbral Ice. Foul is going to be instant. We're going to have things to use in those windows. And, Ley Lines will launch the 3rd minute after the opener. And honestly, I think it's going to work itself out. Unless, I'm completely wrong, in which case, hey, that's cool. But
I mean, is it possible that they kept Ley Lines the way they are? Because, as I understand it, it is something that Black Mages occasionally need to kind of play fast and loose with in terms of using it on cooldown, just based on what the fight allows.
It's because they're afraid.
Oh, okay.
That related. Don't feel bad about being disappointed that Ley Lines is 90 seconds and doesn't have a stack.
Honestly.
Yeah.
So what you're telling me is any Black Mage anywhere who holds their Ley Lines is a coward. That's not a viewpoint that I am espousing or would ever espouse. However,
I was joking about why they wouldn't want to bring it down to 60. If I remember right, in the live
line up
letter,
with Radiant Finale.
They wanted to.
Oh,
Radiant Finale is going to go out at 2 minutes
Neko
anyway.
Neko's saying keep it at 90 to line up with Radiant Finale.
I really doubt the Radiant Finale is going to be popped at 90.
I think the reason they gave in the live letter, if I remember it right, was that they didn't want to do it because they think it's fun to have some skills that are, in their own little category. Like, sure, most things are now going into minute, 2 minutes, but you'll have this handful of ones that are being rebels and quote
We
unquote, hey,
just
that's
think
cool.
it's neat.
Yeah.
What a
Essentially.
satisfying reason.
Which, I mean, had they changed Leyline's duration down to 60 seconds, I mean, the recast down to 60 seconds, they would have had to change the duration to compensate for it. And it's like, we have so many other things that are going to be happening outside of Leylines where it's like, you've already kind of got your hands full keeping, all your movement tools and everything lined up on the way up to that next Leylines burst. If you have more uses of Leylines, to me, that's more opportunities to not be able to use them to their fullest effect. Because it's really hard to say because, like many things with Black Mage, it's always going to come down to fight by fight. Like, for one thing, if you're able to get your ley lines out and keep it on cooldown, it's better than holding it for, say, 10, 15, 20 seconds. Even if you don't get the maximum usage out of it, at least you've gotten it out, you've gotten some usage out of it, and it stays lined up so that the next time the burst window comes up, well, it hasn't drifted out of it.
Right.
But, the biggest counter to that is Earth and Fury. And that is the reason for the infamous Black Mage strat that we are never going to do.
Because we
that is
can't do it. We're not
happening
good
too
enough
much.
to do it.
It's honestly ridiculous. Like, and to be honest, like, yeah, Black Mage has the most, strats like that where they're designed specifically to cater to Black Mage, but it's like, one, you don't really have to do them. It's still possible to optimize everything outside of that, outside of having to do that. And it's just hey, if we want our Black Mage to have a little more damage for our speed kill or whatever, we can do this as a group. But at the same time, while it could be optimal, it's not needed. It's not like
just
a Black Mage is going to tank in. Yeah, like they're not going to tank in performance if they're a really good Black Mage and they know how to line up their movement tools for Earth and Fury. It's not
And
like
if they're
they
not a
can't
really good Black
get
Mage,
high
they really
percentile.
shouldn't even be suggesting those types of strats.
Well, that's a whole other tangent. I don't want to debate it into.
Right,
'cause
no.
I'll do
Sorry.
it. I will do it.
To
But-
answer your question,
but no,
Dom, no, we haven't done that.
No, we haven't done that.
No. You're
I
not even
also
you're not even
not-
reading chat, you fucker.
I'm just responding.
He's asking if we've done E9S with both stacks on the same side for wide angle. Yeah, we have not.
Oh, yeah.
But
I
yeah, that's good for
apologize.
Black Mage.
We haven't done that. Guys.
Mm. Example strat that helps Black Mage a lot. Yeah?
But that is a good point to bring up.
Yeah.
Like there are strats that, fun little challenge things that groups can do to make their Black Mage's life a little better. But
Yeah.
And make their kills a little faster.
make their kills a little bit faster. And that's the
Yeah.
kind of thing that you can get with Black Mage. Like it's not as if it's hard to come across a job who benefits from those kind of niche strats as much as Black Mage would.
Mhm.
So that adds its own little realm of fun little optimization because now it goes into the fact that hey, if you have a bitchin' team that's really awesome and they want to see you do very well and be impressed with what you return from all the extra effort they're investing into you, then hey, you guys can play fast and loose with strat planning and whatnot and see how you can challenge yourselves to squeeze out just that much extra little damage from your neighborhood friendly Black Mage. It's just a whole other extra little world of optimization that Black Mage can get into that not many other classes can really see. I think maybe the only other one that really sees it that much is Samurai, and a lot of that comes down to well, back then it would be cover strats, but
Yeah.
nowadays
Cover
Pretend
strats
I'm
are
in my ley lines.
Cover strats are fucking wild, dude.
they
Tsukuyomi
used to be
EX.
so insane. Back
Tsukuyomi
in
EX.
Storm.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah,
You just
They're
cover the
all
Night
over.
Bloom. Fucking all right, whatever. Yeah, when Dell showed me that, I was like, why? Why is this a thing? But yeah, mhm.
Mm. I mean, I think just to like on Black Mage. Honestly, there's not really much else to say as far as I can recall. Like Black Mage, it's got a couple new toys to play around with, but altogether it hasn't changed too much. You know, to put it the way that Larry put it, Square's managed to take a job that was functionally perfect and expand upon it again. And I agree with
Really?
that. Well,
Sorry,
yeah,
go on.
that as well. I mean, like, I guess the only other thing I can address is how the addition of Paradox is going to shake up the balance between this non-standard rotation and the standard rotation. And honestly, it's hard to say because it really depends on the adjusted potency for Paradox once we're going into Endwalker. You know, as it stands right now, as far as the last time I checked, which I guess now is a good time to explain how Paradox works. Um, the ability to use Paradox is conditional, dependent upon if you're in Astral Fire, if you go into Umbral Ice, you get Paradox.
Mhm.
However, from Umbral Ice going into Astral, you must have 3 Umbral Hearts going into Astral in order to be able to use Paradox in your Astral phase. And that's where the difficulty with gauging how non-standard is going to perform comes in, because, you know, after explaining that, you're going to be able to transpose out of Astral into Umbral, and you will get a Paradox. But you cannot do the same thing. Well, not the same thing. You wouldn't do the same thing. For non-standard, you skip Blizzard 4 every single time. However, being that the requirement to have Paradox in Astral is to go into Astral with 3 Umbral Hearts, that means you can't skip Blizzard 4. You must cast it in order to access Paradox in Astral. Or instead, you would skip the Paradox cast, and you would still only do 4 Fire 4s and finish with Despair, which is the Astral, which is a non-standard rotation. You go into Astral, you do 4 Fire 4s and then Despair. You have lines that you can use depending on how many fillers that you have, whether they be Xenoglossy uses or Thunder Cloud procs, etc. A lot of people use an MP tracker, an MP trigger, to kind of gauge when they're going to get their ticks. I don't use that, so I can't really speak on it. I know that I've attempted using the non-standard rotation, and I've seen them in action, the lines, and to me, it feels a lot like, because I don't know the exact times when my MP ticks are going to come in,
Mhm.
I pretty much have to just store up as many fillers as I can, like as many optimal fillers as I can going into Umbral, because when you're in that Umbral, typically throw in 2 casts of filler in order to make sure your MP goes back up enough to get your Fire 4s out. With Astral, with a non-standard rotation, you, when you're following the lines properly, can transpose out of your Astral Fire and go into Umbral. You would weave, transpose, and you would weave, transpose, and lucid dreaming, and that gives you just enough MP, provided you stick in Umbral just long enough, which is aided by the fact that you are going to be casting a very slow Fire 3 because you are at 1 Umbral Ice stack to take up the time needed to get the MP, such that when you're in Astral Fire, you're not losing another Fire 4 due to a lack of MP to get out your Fire 4. There's a lot of math stuff that, to be honest, I don't quite understand because I'm not a mathematician. I see it in action though, and I know it works. But the benefit to skipping Blizzard 4 and going directly into Astral Fire, doing your 4 Fire 4s, your Despair, transposing into Blizzard, or just Blizzard 3ing and then throwing a Xenoglossy and a Thundercloud proc, and then fire 3ing and going back into astral, doing the same 4 fire 4s in despair is the potency. It increases the potency per second. Like you're skipping a, in this case, wasted cast of Blizzard 4 and replacing it with more casts of Fire 4 over the course of the fall, which, you know, on paper is a really good thing. But now Paradox comes in and that shakes it up a little bit because Paradox is fairly stronger than Fire 1. I think Fire 1 after throwing in the extra damage multiplying from the Astral Fire stacks is like 360 or so potency, somewhere around there.
So
I
it's
don't
about
remember the exact-
33% stronger then at current potencies.
Right. Yeah, Paradox is a good bit above that. But again, it depends on how much potency Paradox is going to be doing at the end of all their adjustments. Because the closer Paradox gets to Fire 1, the less useful, the less enticing it's going to be to, as a trade-off, to have to cast the Blizzard 4 and Humble Ice to access it. You know what I mean? Like, if you can get away with just skipping Blizzard 4, casting your your janky 4 Fire 4s in despair, and going into Humble Ice, and then doing that over and over and over again, provided you don't mess up, and it evens out or exceeds what Paradox is going to be giving you, bearing in mind you have to cast a Blizzard 4 in order to get it, then it could just as easily justify never doing the non-standard again if Paradox is just going to be so much stronger. Like the addition of Paradox to the non-standard rotation is going to be so much stronger than what the non-standard is right now. And it's not like non-standard is thousands of potency ahead of the regular rotation as it is right now.
Right. It doesn't have that big a margin to work with to begin with.
It's not insanely good compared. It's barely like maybe 100 to 200 potency, if that.
And it relies on much stricter near perfect play as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, based on that, it really is starting to sound like the few non-standard users are going to be the crazy hermits up in the mountains pulling off the 100s where everyone else is 99s.
This feels
I don't even know if it's gonna be at that
fucking.
point.
I'm doing the thing right now. It feels so fucking weird.
Oh, the non-standard?
Yeah, 4 Fire 4s into a Flare, right? Or into a Despair, I mean.
Yeah, 4 Fire 4s into Despair. And then you go back into Umbrella with Blizzard 3, and you try not to cast Blizzard 4. So if you have a Xeno, you pop the Xeno. You pray for that lucky mana tick as soon as you cast Blizzard 3, and if you don't get it, well, tough.
Well, you
This
should have been doing
feels-
the standard rotation, idiot.
Oh my god, what the fuck is this?
It's really, really fun once you like get it down. It was a motherfucker for me trying to like untrain the muscle memory from the standard, because it's like, oh my, and you know, you gotta, another word of note for the non-standard: the higher your spell speed, the less effective it is, because you know you can cast ahead of that MP tick at higher spell speeds than you would at like 2,000 to 2,100 or something. So
Wait,
if
which
you're in, like,
rotation do you
4,000
prefer?
Nowadays, I prefer the non-standard because
Okay.
it's that much harder to to pull.
Fucking
And
spell speed
that's-
addict? How did that happen?
It was fun. Is how it happened.
There you go.
Man, like weighing between, because at ridiculously high spell speeds, right? Like if you're at 3,600, 3,800, you're able to do 6 Fire 4s and Despair without having to cast Fire 1 in ley lines, provided you want to dump your triple and your swift cast into ley lines. You can knock all 6 of those Fire 4s out in Despair and then go right back into Umbral Ice without dropping an Oak in. And that, when I figured that out, when the first time I did that, Brad can probably tell you that I was like a kid in the fucking candy shop. I was like, yo, this is so cool. But
Honestly, I blame the relic weapon
like,
and your ability to change spell speed tiers on a dime.
well, now that we're done with the tier, I was able to get all of the gear for each Besson slot. So I still have the gear for the spell speed set. I can just put it on if I ever want to be mega fast. But I actually prefer
Just
the
dusty, and I don't care.
slower set. Yeah, I never thought I'd say it, but I prefer the slower, non-standard set. And it's not like you're forced to do non-standard if you're playing at a slower spell speed. It's just playing at a lower spell speed makes doing non-standard a little bit easier because, like I said, you're not casting way too fast and outspeeding your lucky MP tick in Umbral Ice. But
This just feels jank as
it's,
fuck, dude.
it feels jank until you do it perfectly, and it feels. It's still
It
gonna
feels
feel jank.
wrong.
I
What
can't say
the? It feels wrong is what it feels, dude. What the fuck?
but
When the MP
But-
tick hits just right.
basically, but you gotta bear in
Just
mind
kiss.
a lot of high parsing black mages are doing this exact thing.
What's your CP doing?
Goju
His
P, I
best.
believe, is doing the standard rotation. However, it is confirmed that he is aware of the non-standard. He called it an unreasonable rotation, and he found himself
Y'all are
like
fucking heretics.
paying more attention to it than to the mechanics, which I think is a lot of the reason why.
This feels.
Paradox. He decided to invalidate it with Paradox.
Yeah, he said.
This is an
"Fuck
attack on the
this
foundation
rotation."
of your religion, Oso.
But I mean,
It
I
makes it so.
I feel like there's no way he's not aware that using transpose from Astral going into Umbral is still going to get you Paradox. I'm sure he's aware of that. Hell, he probably challenges black mages to figure out a way to make this jank ass shit optimal, even after the enhanced standard rotation going into Endwalker with Paradox. Because honestly, like the main gray area for me is you got to bear in mind that it's still just a replacement for Fire 1, which you don't want to cast in non-standard. It's a slightly stronger Fire 1. If it's a very much stronger Fire 1, absolutely, non-standard for the most part is dead outside of, super niche things where it's like, oh, well, I misaligned my GCDs here and I'm 2 casts behind. I may as well get the most out of this Astral I can, because if I try to stay in it, I'm absolutely going to get deleted by a mechanic. I can just throw out 4 Fire 4s into Despair, because it's better than throwing out 3 Fire 4s, a Paradox, and a Despair, because the Fire 4 is higher potency. You can just throw out the Despair, go back into Umbral, and prepare yourself for having to move. But it's, and that's another thing. It's not like a non-standard you never ever have to cast Blizzard for. You hope you never have to, but you still get a couple in there.
Yeah.
Just as a matter of like keeping things flowing well. Specifically for me personally, in phase 1 of E12, coming out of Earth and Fury, you deal with the raid wide and then the stack. You have ley lines there as the raid wide is going off. Then you got to get into the stack for the beam, which is either going to be south or southeast. And then from there you have to start getting ready for the statue stacks. And you go into the bit with each statue is going to blast 2 of the party, and they have to swap places in and out. And then at the end of that, you have the big knockback from Giant Gaia, and then you have to
The big
get
snack.
into the safe space for the release after that. It's like I absolutely Blizzard 4 there, because that extra little bit of time for Blizzard 4, or at least how it lines up for me, gives me time to see where my what number statue tether I'm gonna get. Because if I go directly back into fire, now I'm stuck in my burst, and I'm trying to slide cast my way into either the side to bait my laser, or into the middle so I don't get blasted by somebody's laser. It's like, no, I'll just Blizzard 4. That gives me enough time to get my Xeno. I can get into position here. Astral after as the numbers come up, and then from there I've got triple cast and shit. And it gets easier to. It lines everything up easier. Like it makes it easier on me rather than trying to bite the bullet and just go right into my burst when major mechanic things are happening, and I can die every couple seconds if I keep being stubborn. It's like, but once that intense movement is out of the way, it's like, okay, cool. You're coming back into the middle. You're fine. You can drop your ley lines
And
and
you can
shit.
safely resume.
Get ready for lions and all that. Like, it's cool. It's cool.
So, before we dive any deeper into Black Mage, I do feel like we should move on just a little bit to preserve on time, right? We don't want to spend 3 hours talking
You
about
knew.
Black Mage. I know.
You knew.
I know.
Yes, he does.
And
That wasn't even in here. It'd be so much worse.
and that's why I wanted to have a specific cast with the both of you. But we can save that for another time. But like, I'm sure there are a million other things you would like to talk about for Black Mage. And I very much want to set aside that time for you, but I do want to make sure that this cast is not 5 hours long and
I absolutely forgot.
stuff.
So, wait.
I figured I would just kind of
You get me started on Black Mage, I'm gonna go on.
I know. No, and I don't want you to think that, I don't value the Black Mage stuff at all. But, I also value making this a listenable thing and not like, a 5-hour thing. So, just to kind of wrap it up just a little bit, right? I'll direct this more towards Oso more than everyone else. But if I feel free to answer it however you like. Where would you kind of rate the casters? In terms of just like where they are heading into Endwalker, and stuff. Like, do you think they're in a good spot? Do you think that there are a lot of improvements that still need to be made? With the information that we're kind of given right now.
Oh, right. You're directing that.
Yeah.
To be honest, and this is probably going to be unpopular opinion, but I was of the opinion that Black Mage was already perfect in Shadowbringers, and several in the static can confirm that I was terrified of what the changes for going into Endwalker was going to be. And I can say that I'm pretty pleased with them. Like, their new changes, they don't infringe too much on what Black Mage has going forward right now. The only odd part is going to be the AoE, because folk are seeing potencies for flare and being reduced, and enhanced flare going back to what the potency is currently, and they're like, oh man, well, Black Mage AoE is going to be crap. And it's like, well, right now Black Mage AoE is the best, and I think I can I think I can get over not having the best clear times in a fucking dungeon if I enjoy my job in the content that I love playing it in, which is going to be Savage. And I couldn't really be happier with the changes they're giving to Black Mage. As far as rating it, I still think it's going to be hardest hitting caster, but only if you really work for it, just like it is right now. And if you don't, well, you're the class that's most predisposed to being out DPS by
everyone.
A freaking tank.
Yeah.
That's just how Black Mage is. It's been that way forever, and it's gonna stay that way.
Yeah. How about the other casters? How about the other casters for as far as like, to get Razh back in a little bit, and Brad? What about you two?
I'm checking to see if Razh is awake. As far as Red Mage is concerned, I think it's the problems that it has right now are almost exclusively high tier meta problems, and the fact that the typical party comp only has one magic DPS, and if that's the system that you're working with, you really don't want to bring a Red Mage. As far as whether or not I think that's going to change in Endwalker, it remains to be seen. But outside of that sort of niche concern, I think the things that make Red Mage the most fun are things you are going to get to do more often.
in Endwalker, and they are going to look better than ever, and they're going to feel better than ever. So as far as the experience of playing the job in Endwalker, I think it's just going to be a net positive across the board.
That's good. And then is Razh still alive?
Oh, I'm alive. I mean,
Okay.
Black Mage put me to sleep, but nah, I'm kidding.
Sleep. They get it at like
I,
level 16.
no. I was
Oh.
I knew I also was gonna go all in, so and plus
Yeah.
I don't have any knowledgeable things to give, so I was just like, I'm just gonna be quiet this whole entire
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
But
Uh,
I guess since each just mentioned the individual ones we talked about, summoner wise, I believe is in a good spot. And the only reason why someone might say it's not in a good spot is probably, it's the same with any time a class gets a rework. It's the same with like Machinist and Shadowbringer. The people who are like, oh, my class was so exclusive, or oh, it was so hard, or had this thing, and now they changed it because, now they took away dots and
Yeah.
other stuff. But I believe most summoners are not going to mind being actual summoners.
yeah. Well, that's good.
So there is that,
Mhm.
and I mean, I, I was gonna mention it earlier, but it was hard to cut in when you guys were talking about like when Black Mage dies and they use mana font and stuff. I believe the new summoner is going to be less punishing on when you die, because when you died as a summoner in Shadowbringers, it was the absolute worst.
Your rotation just got giga fucked.
Yeah, like dying as a summoner was the one of the worst classes to be.
Yeah.
But so I believe it will be a lot better, and I think it's going for a good direction.
Yeah.
Great. Another
Even
thing
though
that
I'm not,
Summoner gets, the Scholar
not even
doesn't.
playing summoner.
Yeah, and the other thing that that I always that I always ask people that are in these casts with me is there anything that you're kind of hoping for or see like in these end game encounters in Endwalker that you might not be getting now, or is there like are there old mechanics or something like that that you wish could be brought back that um you might be looking forward to like seeing / resolving as a caster, if /
Oh,
when
as a caster.
you know, or
Like
or anything in
a
general.
fight
Yeah.
design wish list sort of
Yeah.
an idea.
Yeah.
Sure, I'll throw one out. So you might all hate me, because I'm not a caster
But
currently, but I'm a tank. So I'm gonna throw out one that's similar to a tank. Everyone has heard of Midgard Zomer, right?
yes,
Uh-huh.
we have.
So last year there was oh no, not last year.
Last expansion.
Yeah, last expansion in Eden verse there was Ifrit and Garuda,
Yeah.
and during that point you could only attack one as like you got tethered to it.
Yes, you got a
So you could either
proximity
attack
debuff.
Garuda or Ifrit, and usually range will prefer to attack Ifrit, and melee would want to attack Garuda. But it's also the same thing as like Eve tiers before that in Stormblood, Omega MF.
Oh, yeah,
What
that's
I would like to see is more mechanics where the DPS casters being involved are forced to do mechanics based on targets or conditions that they had to fulfill.
Say that again one more time.
I know it was very confusing because I didn't even think it through.
It's okay.
Were you trying to say basically more mechanics where essentially the range don't have the freedom to just stay out and do whatever?
Uh,
Or is that not what you were getting at?
Maybe, but also it seems unfair because Summoner has so many opportunities for mobility now, and also with Ifrit's gap closer and stuff, and Garuda's slipstream being put down. I mean, it's gonna be sad when people pull it out, Doton. No, just other stuff, but
Yeah.
it's more of like because Adel has been changed and other stuff. I just want to see. It's kind of hard for DPS because any team can be, you can use any comp or whatever. But it would be interesting to see if casters get more specified mechanics. But it would be more like a range thing.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
see.
okay. I see what you mean.
Like more things like, oh, a ranged class has to fulfill this role.
There is some of that. Like mechanics where you are, whether either A, the game is specifying it, or B, just common sense is specifying that you have your two ranged players handle the mechanic. Like I'm thinking about like in Uwu, during the Ifrit section, the two players furthest away from the boss get marked up with a series of eruptions that follow them.
Yeah.
And you could have any job do that. You could have your melees just hang out in the back of the arena, unable to punch the boss, and then run around the outside, still not hitting the boss. But it's probably better to have the ranged handle that. So yeah, I could see more mechanics even in like Savage or the EXs doing that.
There's also another thing, which I'm probably gonna get a lot of hate for this.
You are a tank. You're supposed to gather hate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm a tank now, so but I kind of hope they actually no, maybe I won't get any hate for this. They do things better than they did with Void Gate Amplifier and E10S. Because it was very bad for range working with melee for that mechanic, trying to do uptimes.
Specifically for uptimes, yeah, that was a strategy line where the burden placed on the range was higher
yeah.
than usual.
I mean,
Well-
like, I don't mind range having more things to do or be stressed in a fight, but it felt very unfair for range when it came to
It
uptime.
was very. I felt like it felt very job specific in terms of how screwed over you were getting.
Yeah.
Like, Ardent was an Astro at the time. As long as light speed is retained for that section, it's
Yeah.
Largely effortless outside of just making sure you're getting to the spot on time.
And of course,
But a white
physical
mage
range
doesn't
have
have that
easy
ability.
play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Still saying
Oh.
have mechanics where the team has to choose one player that can't move but can cast. Smiley face. Basically black mage.
I would like to support more mechanics where ranged is designated as honorary melee and stays that way for 6 to 7 minutes at a time. I mean, honestly, as a red mage player, fucking not having to just accidentally be melee every so often,
Yeah.
just be melee from the start, I could get down with that.
How about you, Oso? Any wish list?
This probably stems from the fact that we just haven't gone back in and done it. Well, I think you guys have, and I just didn't at the
Actually,
time. But
okay, I actually found one where people will hate me.
that's the goal.
Because tanks have a bunch of single target mitigations now. I think it would be cool if casters took a tank buster and tanks had to make them survive with the healers.
So basically stack mechanics.
Basically a stack mechanic, but it's mainly like a tank buster on a caster.
I unironically would enjoy a fight that had a mechanic where
Because
a
now we
DPS
got
was
all
making
these
a tank
single
buster.
target mitigations. It's like, oh, you know what?
I would appreciate that challenge, to be quite
Oh,
honest.
The
it's
reason
like
why I
have-
mentioned that is because I didn't watch like a video of World of Warcraft talking about warlock tanks.
That'd be really interesting to have like a mechanic that deals heavy damage to a single target, but like that isn't tanks. And so like everyone would have to
It's up to the tanks and the healers and the group
like
to
throw a
keep that person alive.
TBN, throw a TBN and intervention as
It's
well as
kinda
like a
actually
shield.
like
That'd be really
Fatebreaker.
interesting.
Yeah, but
Hey,
Fatebreaker
Brad.
is a dot, and it's more long-term maintenance. We're talking about actually helping them survive a big-ass hit.
Yeah, that'd be
Right,
really
you're
that'd be really fun. That'd be really interesting. That'd be
So
probably
you're surviving tank busters
was
next
wondering.
year.
Yeah, you remember that? Remember that proposal that I wanted for Black Mage? How they
Yeah.
changed Man of War?
But-
It sounds awfully awfully similar.
But
Conducive.
but what were you gonna say, Oso? And we kind of skipped over what you were
Sorry,
gonna
but
say.
I swear, like this might be a little surprising, but I don't necessarily like being able to self-insert Black Mage into the melee slot just so that I can just sit there and cast. Like, I think there's more skill expression in having a mechanic that's challenging to handle, but that then in turns challenges you to set up your skills to overcome it. So I'd have to pick something like Second Forsaken from 08S.
Mm.
You know, where you had the melee dancing in the middle, baiting the AoEs to keep uptime. Then, if I remember right, the ranged would be baiting out the northeast and the northwest. They'd get what 4 or 5 flame puddles they have to drop out away from the party, and then the tanks have to run off and face the clones of Godka out so that they don't kick into the middle and shit. It's like, you know, moments where the challenge is okay, people have to bait specific things either in the middle or out on the sides.
Mhm.
Typically, of course, it's going to be the melee in the middle, but imagine a black mage being in the middle, baiting the stratosphere, trying to keep pace with a melee. You know what I mean? Or a situation like, say, what is that shit called? And in O11S during
Oh, Panty
Panto Crater.
Craters. Yeah.
It's an O.
Sure.
I can confirm that it's an O.
Sure. Let's go with that.
Panto Crater, which I
Panty
wish I would have
Craters.
Black Mage back in Stormblood, but
Hmm.
you know,
Dude, fuck that
imagining
fight, though.
how to. I loved that fight.
That's
But,
the
like,
off
imagining
tank.
how to
Yeah.
handle it. Oh yeah, as the off tank, that shit sucked. I was
Yeah.
a ninja at the time.
Just yeah. What I did was I just fucking hallowed and then just spirit, like holy spirit spam. Fuck
Yeah,
that.
I don't know.
Hate it.
I'll
Anyways,
yeah,
yeah. This ain't about tanks. This
Like-
is about
like, situations where there's no way to cheese it, like Earth and Fury. You have to figure out a way to keep your uptime while handling the mechanic without losing uptime as much as you can. Like, I think that kind of challenge there
Mhm.
is pretty cool. And I would pick Second Forsaken specifically because that was the first time as a ninja, I looked at Black Mage and was like, how the fuck would you do that? And like, obviously, the Black Mage would be out on the edge or something,
Yeah.
and you would probably just triple cast it. But it's cool imagining that for me, you know. It's like it's that sense of wonder where it's like I have no godly idea
Second
how
for
Black
second
Mages
is a
would do
melee.
any of this fight, or baiting like the first or third Forsaken in the crosses and shit to get into the towers without getting touched by the heads. It's like,
Mhm.
man, you always have to move, and yet Black Mage can't. So how did they do it? You know?
Yeah. Del says he's cleared multiple times as a melee black mage for Second Forsaken.
Melee Black Mage.
Yeah.
Is it just easier than like my wonder is making it out to be? Like, do you just like triple cast it and
Triple.
sharp cast
Yeah.
a fire in there, and it's like it's actually easier than it sounds. But oh man, I never played Black Mage
Yeah.
back then, so it was like a lot of the wonder of why I thought Black Mage would be fun to try in Shadowbringers comes from that fight, that specific mechanic, where it's like, well, I'm a
Lost some
ninja, of
DPS,
course
but we
this
do
is
what we have
easy.
to do. Yeah.
But how would a Black Mage do it, kind of thing, you know? More mechanics like that, where you're challenged to do movement.
Godka is an amazing fight. I wish I was on Godka as like when I was playing.
Godka.
I was playing early. I was a Wii Sprout during Sugma on content. So
Sigma was my first full tier clear. I was a Sprout during Delta,
yeah, same.
but I caught up and I wanted to finish Sigma before it was.
I was scared
Awesome.
by the people that would eventually be part of my first static into thinking that Savage was scary and that I shouldn't go in there until I was better at my job instead of, jumping in and taking it.
Mm,
It's okay though. I mean, like, I'm way better now than I was back then, but like, I
mm.
should not have been that scared.
I
Oh, well.
can definitely, I can definitely admit that I was a little nervous when I first stepped into. I think my first savage was Algeroid, all one S.
Hmm.
And like to be honest, like because I didn't. Well, yeah, I did look up a guide and everything, but I hadn't done anything like that. Like I skipped the X's and went straight to savage. I was like, well,
Oh.
fuck it,
I got
you know,
lucky and
I'm
did
gonna do it.
Phantom Train.
I had Byakuo on
Algeroid
farm.
was such an easy fucking. Algeroid
Yeah.
was such an easy savage too. Like,
Cleared and
I was like,
progged with 2 black
savage. This is
mages.
savage.
Wow.
This is easy.
Felt bad for our savage, our static when they had to do Ramu and then and then Cloud of Darkness.
See, I like remove.
I know, but like for first fights, it was quite surprising.
Hmm.
Ramu, on that specifically, when I was saying I didn't really like the idea of just being a self-insert melee, I was specifically
Chain
thinking
lightning.
about chain lightning. It's like you kind of just sit there and hope things go well.
Oh yeah,
Which, well,
even I as summoner, because I went summoner in the fight, I hoped that we would do circle strat instead of triangle strat.
But you see, only by using triangle strat will you get enough procs off of Lilybell for it to be worthwhile on White Mage.
Only using triangle strat can you use Razh as a cooldown.
There's that
Anyways,
too.
I mean, do we have anything else we want to talk about just with casters in general, as like closing remarks, or would we say that we pretty much covered everything?
if I start up on Black Mage again, I'm just gonna.
Yeah, we'll start ranting.
Yeah, have yourself a cigarette.
Yeah.
No, I think I'm all set.
Did anyone care about level synced content? Oh, what do you mean, Doe?
As far as what the new forms of the jobs
Oh,
will
since
look like when
Summoner is going
backwards.
to change a luck and Black Mage have one trait. Did anyone care about the synced content? Oh, as in like, okay, well, we talked about that a little bit earlier with like kind of the leveling process just being a lot more streamlined,
Yeah,
especially
a
for
lot better
Summoner. Yeah. And as far as Black Mage goes, it's to a lesser extent.
Unless you're
But
talking about like sync for like ultimates. I don't know.
yeah.
No, I think they're talking specifically about leveling experience.
Like, I mean, the getting the mastery trait at level 1 is definitely huge. But like your rotation still kind of changes from 1 to 50 and then again at level 60 and then doesn't change too much after that. But you still have to wait for the big boy spells coming in. I think the MP changes are huge, but like not as huge as like the actual streamlined like summoner rotation that we're going to be getting that evolves as you level up and doesn't change as much. Like the lack of change from 1 to 90 for summoner in terms of like the general rotation, what buttons to push at what time, I think is at least in my opinion slightly bigger than the streamlined like MP process of Black Mage, in my personal opinion.
Yeah, it's like even with the extra AoE stuff that they're getting, that
Yeah.
stuff's coming in after level 80. So
Yeah.
leveling for Black Mage is still largely going to be the same, I think.
Yeah, and I mean that's not to discount the fact that like the MP thing is huge. Like I still think it's huge. It's just
Yeah.
not as big as Summoner, personally.
Mm.
Was the gap closer mentioned and or too minor?
Oh,
I don't
if
think we
it's gap
talked
closer?
about it. If it has a gap closer, yeah.
Gap closing.
Yeah,
into
and it's a two-part combo as well.
Yeah.
6-piece combo.
Yeah.
No, that's Red Mage.
I know most people missed the first little bit and then only came in during Oso's hour-long
Don't
rant
worry.
about Black Mage, but it's okay.
Was
I
it
was
an
very
hour? I'm
vague.
sorry.
No?
Wasn't
Mine
a
was
rant.
very
Don't-
boring.
It was a dissertation.
It was a
I-
thesis.
I couldn't even get it all
It was a
out.
love letter.
I know I cut
got
you off.
Stopped.
I cut you off. Yeah, I know. Because that's another stream. That like I said, I'm waiting for more stability for everybody before we can start having that Black Mage conversation. So don't worry, it's coming. But I mean, aside from that, do we have any other remarks we want to bring up or anything? Coming to a close. Did I miss anything, Brad? I don't think I did. Did I?
Nothing comes to mind.
Okay. But yeah, I think I'm still gonna keep streaming, by the way. But like, I think that'll be just about it for the cast today. Yeah.
And that does bring us to the end of all of the roles in Shadowbringers, unless you have been planning a Blue Mage cast and didn't tell me.
I mean, who would I bring into that? Like Neko?
Certainly not me.
Brad.
Neko, I guess. Neko and maybe Tiller. I don't know.
I know less about Blue Mage than I know about healers.
Yeah,
Talking
It's
for
okay.
an hour about Blue Mage optimization.
yeah. But I think
Collabs.
Don't know what any of these fucking buttons do.
crafters and gatherers. I mean, I'd have to get you on a night that you're available, Del, because I don't know shit. But yeah, I think for now that should
You're gonna need
bring
all
us
macros.
to
Yes,
the end
we should be all
of
set.
that should bring us to the end of the cast for today. Going into the next couple of weeks, I think we're gonna do a Shadowbringers retrospective. I think is the best way to put it. Since we have the extra 2 weeks, I'm planning on splitting that into kind of having one more centered around tanks, healers, and like the more defensive side of like how did fights feel to mitigate versus, and then like have another cast with more DPS centric. Like how did it feel to work your rotation through each fight or through fights and how do the mechanics feel, and working your rotations around certain mechanics and stuff like that. So stay tuned for that over the next couple of weeks. But if you're watching this on YouTube, I appreciate the view. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think. Let me know if there are any improvements that I need to make towards these podcasts to make it a more enjoyable experience. And yeah, that should be it. So have a great evening. Have a great day, or wherever it is you are in the world, whatever time it is in the day. And I'll see you next time.